The train completed the ride. All 20 passengers who started the journey were accounted for at the unload platform. The restraints had functioned. The track had held. State inspectors who examined the Raven roller coaster at Holiday World the following day found nothing wrong with it. No mechanical fault, no structural defect, no maintenance failure. The ride had done exactly what it was built to do. One of the 20 passengers who boarded did not return to the platform. This is the contradiction at the center of this story, and it is the reason this incident does not fit the pattern of most roller coaster tragedies you have heard about. There was no snapped cable, no collapsed track, no failed bolt. By every mechanical measure available to the investigators who arrived the next morning, the Raven was safe. And a 32-year-old woman was dead. The question this video asks is not what broke. Nothing broke. The question is whether nothing broke and this was safe are actually the same thing. And what happens when an entire industry's safety standard is built on the assumption that they are. Tamar Fellner was 32 years old from New York City. She was part of a community that exists somewhat outside mainstream awareness, but is substantial in size and deeply organized. Roller coaster enthusiasts. People who travel, sometimes considerable distances, specifically to ride coasters, who track ride statistics, who return to favorite parks repeatedly, who understand the mechanics and history of these rides with a level of detail that goes well beyond the average visitor. On May 31, 2003, Tamar was at Holiday World and Splashin Safari in Santa Claus, Indiana, with a group of fellow enthusiasts. The Raven, a wooden roller coaster that had opened in 1995, designed by Custom Coasters International, known for its terrain-following layout through forested terrain and its sharp, well-regarded airtime moments, was one of the attractions on their list. She rode it. She liked it enough to ride it again. This detail matters, not because it changes what happened, but because it establishes something important about who Tamar Fellner was. She was not a first-time rider unfamiliar with what a wooden coaster does to your body. She was someone who sought this experience out, who understood, in the way that enthusiasts do, what airtime feels like, what a drop feels like, what it feels like when a restraint engages and the ride begins. At approximately 8:30 p.m., she boarded the Raven for the second time. She was seated in the last row of the 6-car train. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what was and wasn't holding Tamar Fellner into her seat. The Raven's trains, built by Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters, use a restraint configuration that is extremely common on wooden roller coasters of this era: an individual ratcheting lap bar combined with a seatbelt. The lap bar pulls down across the rider's lap and locks into place via a ratcheting mechanism, a series of teeth that allow the bar to be pulled down to whatever position fits the rider's body and then lock at that position. It cannot be pulled back up without staff intervention. The seatbelt is a secondary restraint fastened across the same area. This is, by design, a system built to accommodate a wide range of body types: a taller rider, a shorter rider, a heavier rider, a smaller rider. The ratcheting mechanism adjusts to fit all of them, locking at whatever point the bar reaches when pulled down across that individual body. In the language of restraint engineering, this is sometimes called a universal or one-size-fits-all restraint. One design intended to provide adequate containment across the full range of human bodies that will use it. What this restraint system does is hold the lower body, the lap and upper thighs, against the seat. What it does not do, by design, is restrict the upper body's ability to move. A rider can lean forward. A rider can raise their arms. A rider can, under certain circumstances, rise partially out of the seated position, even with a properly engaged lap bar and seatbelt, because neither restraint is designed to prevent that specific movement. They are designed to keep the rider's body from being thrown forward, out, or down through the open front of the car during the forces a roller coaster generates. The Raven's most significant drop is 85 feet. On a wooden coaster of this design, drops of this kind generate what's known in the industry as airtime, the sensation of weightlessness as the train crests a hill and begins its descent, where for a brief moment the forces acting on a rider's body approach or fall below the force of gravity holding them in their seat. Airtime is, for many enthusiasts, the entire appeal of a ride like the Raven. It is also the moment in which a rider's body is, by definition, least pressed into the seat by gravity, and most reliant on the restraint system to keep them positioned. The official account, established by Spencer County authorities and Indiana's Department of Fire and Building Services in the days following the incident, was as follows. During the ride's largest drop, a 69-foot descent, Tamar Fellner stood up while the train was in motion. She fell from the car. She was taken to a local hospital where she was pronounced dead by the county coroner. Holiday World closed for the following day, Sunday, June 1st, out of respect, and reopened on Monday. It was, park officials confirmed, the first fatality in the park's history. State inspectors arrived and examined the Raven. They found no mechanical problems with the ride. William Koch, Holiday World's president, stated that the 6-car train had 20 people aboard when it left the station, and that all 20 had been strapped in with a seatbelt and bar restraint before departure. The Spencer County Sheriff's Department classified the death as an accident. A spokesman for the Department of Fire and Building Services described Holiday World as having an excellent safety record and stated the park was very concerned about their patrons. No criminal charges were filed. By every standard the investigation applied, the system had worked. The restraint had been engaged at departure. The ride had operated within its design parameters. The mechanical components, track, train, brakes, lift, were all found to be functioning correctly. A woman had stood up during a drop on a ride she had already once completed safely, and the restraint that had been locked across her lap when the train left the station had not been able to keep her in her seat once she did. If you're watching this on your TV right now, search Abandoned Thrills on your phone and subscribe. This channel investigates the systems behind incidents like this one every week. Almost 2 years after Tamar Fellner's death, after law enforcement had concluded no criminal charges should be filed, after the official classification of accident had been on record for nearly 24 months, a federal lawsuit was filed on behalf of her father, Rabbi Azriel Fellner. The lawsuit made 2 distinct claims, and the distinction between them is the entire point of this video. The first claim was that Holiday World had not ensured Tamar was properly restrained. A claim about operational practice, about whether staff had verified her restraint adequately before dispatch. This is the kind of claim that appears in almost every ride fatality lawsuit, and it is, in isolation, a claim about human error. The second claim was different. The lawsuit alleged that the manufacturer could have used a safer design. This second claim is not about whether Tamar's restraint was locked. The investigation already established it likely was. Koch's statement, the inspector's findings, the no mechanical problems conclusion, all point toward a restraint that functioned exactly as it was engineered to function. The second claim is about whether functioned as engineered was ever an adequate standard in the first place. What the lawsuit was asking, in effect, was this: if a restraint system can be correctly locked, correctly engaged, pass inspection, and operate exactly as designed, and a rider can still leave their seat during the ride's most forceful moment, is the design itself the failure? Not a single bar that didn't latch, not a ratchet tooth that slipped. The entire category of restraint, a lap bar and seatbelt combination that holds the lower body and assumes the upper body will simply stay where it's put. Here is the uncomfortable reality that sits underneath this entire story. A ratcheting lap bar restraint is, by its nature, a compromise. It has to accommodate an enormous range of human bodies. A restraint tight enough to fully immobilize a 6'4" adult male would be unusable, even dangerous, for a 4'8" child, and vice versa. The ratcheting design solves this by allowing the bar to lock at whatever point it reaches for each individual rider. But locks at whatever point it reaches is a very different engineering promise than prevents this rider's body from moving. For some riders, depending on body shape, depending on how the bar happened to engage on that specific ride, depending on what happens to their body during a moment of near weightlessness at the top of an 85-foot drop, the gap between the bar is locked and this person cannot leave the seat can be real. And it can be invisible. It will not show up on an inspection. It will not appear in a maintenance log. It will not be flagged by any pre-ride check because the bar will have engaged correctly, locked correctly, and held at the position it reached for that rider's body on that day. The industry's response to incidents like this one in the years since has been incremental rather than wholesale. Many newer coasters, particularly those marketed around larger drops and more intense airtime, have moved toward restraint systems that more directly restrict upper body movement. Over-the-shoulder harnesses, for instance, which physically anchor the torso rather than relying solely on a lap-level bar. But the lap bar and seatbelt combination remains common across the wooden coaster category, including at Holiday World, including, after a brief closure and reopening just 1 week after Tamar's death, on the Raven itself. The ride reopened on June 7, 2003. It is still operating today. It has, in the more than 2 decades since, been refurbished multiple times. New trains, new track sections, ongoing maintenance investment that reflects a park widely regarded within the enthusiast community as one of the best maintained in the country. Holiday World's safety reputation, by every account, remains strong. None of that changes what the restraint system on the Raven was, and largely still is, designed to do, and what it was never designed to prevent. There is a sentence in the original investigation that deserves to sit with you, because it captures something most people never think about when they buckle into a roller coaster seat. All were strapped in with a seatbelt and bar restraint. That sentence was offered as reassurance. It was offered as evidence that the system had worked. And by the only standard the system was designed to be measured against, it had. A locked restraint is not the same statement as a safe restraint. Those two things are supposed to be identical. That is the entire premise on which an industry asks millions of people every year to trust a piece of engineered hardware with their lives for 90 seconds at a time. For Tamar Fellner, on May 31, 2003, on the Raven's 69-foot drop, those two things were not the same. The ride completed its run. The train returned to the platform. 19 of the 20 restraints had done everything they were ever asked to do. This has been Abandoned Thrills. Like and subscribe to not miss the next deep dives into stories like this. See you in the next one.